borders. South Africa South Africans create, the colonizers come in with their IP magic, and boom, money, capital, draws itself from their lands and ends in the bank accounts of the top 5 or 6 IP empires of the world. That's how it goes. And now, South Africans want a US-styled IP protection for fair use of IP, begging for slightly more freedom to use thoughts, ideas, concepts, songs of others without having to surrender the totality of the fruit, such as that might come, to the 3-second IP holder of your 30-minute presentation that you worked on for 6 weeks. Yeah, that's how it goes. And it goes. And it goes. And the story is from Billboard. South Africa's copyright fight. It's big tech versus artists as fair use reform awaits a president's pen. At the heart of the debate is whether South Africa should retain its enumerated exceptions to copyright for use like education and the broadcasting of public speeches, or move to a more flexible system that would be more like the U.S. fair use. Developing countries like South Africa have generally tended to see copyright as an import, not an export. At a parliamentary hearing on the bill, Universal Music South Africa managing director Sipho Dlamini disputed the myth that the international record label making money in South Africa and then send all their money overseas instead of reinvesting it in the markets. Myth! According to Dlamini, from 2014 to 2016, an average of 68% revenue generated by international record labels remain in South Africa. You don't see that problem. 32%. 32%. That is a significant chunk. Yeah. See? I mean, his evidence is damning against him. South Africa is one of many countries where creators in the media business are locked in a struggle with American technology companies and their supporters over how copyright law should apply online. Now, this is an example, let me tell you, that I absolutely, the United States of America as a vehicle of power, as a nation-state vehicle of power, is absolutely my vehicle of power of choice. Even if I could close my eyes and pick any country in the world that I would choose to have as my particular nation-state vehicle of power, it would be the United States of America for a variety of reasons. I'm not preaching American exceptionalism. I'm just saying for my preferences, this is the place to be for me, which is still, well, it's significantly below my expectations, but still, this is where I'd most want to be. So, even though this is my vehicle of power, the United States of America, there's one particular vehicle of power for the United States that puts it far ahead of almost every other nation state, save for maybe China, because I think China just passed the U.S. in patents, I think, maybe. So anyway, China and the U.S. These two countries. Well, China is way behind the U.S. because the U.S. has legacy patents that China still has to pay for. But IP is colonization, most assuredly. It's you produce this material and you're going to get 32% of it taken. Now, I by the way, I bet you even his figures are probably a gross exaggeration. I'm willing to bet, but I don't know. I'd have to look at it more. But still, you're talking about a vehicle of power for my nation state that is also fundamentally in opposition to my consensual vehicle of power. So for me, IP is a no, even though it would harm my United States vehicle of power, because we benefit so much from it. We would lose a lot of revenue if you suddenly ended IP, especially the type of IP that I really would like to see end. But this is what South Africa is struggling with. This is what a lot of other nation states are struggling. It's the big issue between the United States and China, really, because Europe also has advantages over China in the IPs. This is also basically the United States and Europe and even Canada with this group, that they have, it's distinctly, it's really, really in their interest to push for the preservation, the rigid preservation of international IPs with which to cull from the minds of others their vast reserves. Yeah, well, they're not vast because they end up culling them until dead, metaphorically or otherwise. So as you can tell, I am not for it. I am not interested in the American state continuing to use the advantage of IP as a means to essentially colonize the rest of the world. And I'm also not for IP that colonizes us right here, the cannibalized colonization that occurs with IP. But let me speak a little bit more about that, about the insipid nature of IP that prevents human beings from. Look at what's happening on YouTube. YouTube is where you see the dangers of IP that many people pointed out to a long, long time ago. IP just becomes land to conquer and to zealously hold. And it ends up easily. You don't need warehouses to stock IP in. You don't have tremendous amounts of expense in preserving IP. IP is just at this point, ultimately, it's digital data, which can be contained in an incredibly small space for an incredibly cheap amount of money every month. Even a negligible amount of money as far as that goes. That's where we're at, where you don't even have to have vast management of humans to hold this power. And you don't even have to lock it up. I mean, it's tremendous, the advantage that IP gives to those that have the means to control, to buy out the thoughts of others who. The old story, it's always the same. Well, I got this great idea, but I'm never really going to be able to do what these guys do. They know what they're doing. Look how successful they are. That's usually what you hear. And who can resist it? It's hard to resist. It's an easy life for you. You've got an escape pod, and now you no longer have to live in the grind. Why is it that, think about it, we always find it so remarkable when a football player, just last week all he was doing was being a mailman, or all he was doing was he was working in a restaurant, or it's like he was in a death camp and got freed. And now that he's freed and you see them on this stage, it's like, how is it that someone in a death camp is doing something as incredible as this? It's kind of like, that's the vibe. That's the vibe. And to get out of that death camp, one of the easiest ways is IP. If you just can buy the IP and license it, imagine that. Imagine just being able to buy the IP and license it. Imagine this. Imagine you don't even have to buy the IP. You don't have to worry about licensing it. All you got to do is find people to sue for everything you can. And you can just sue everyone. You sue 15, 20, 30, 100, 5,000 people, and if you only get money from 500 of them, 10%, that's probably realistic. You're going to make yourself some serious bank. Serious bank. There's a whole cottage industry that has emerged around these law firms that specialize in culling the herd, for shaking them down using IP. This is what IP is. IP is legalized mafia. Is essentially what it is. Legalized mafia of the mind. That's the worst part. It's the mafia of the mind. The idea that you can create something and then you should zealously hold on to it and said, no one can do anything else with this but me. I understand if somebody uses your stuff and doesn't credit you. And I understand if, well, I'll just leave it at that. I'm not gonna say anything about the money, the compensation. They take your stuff, they make more money off of it. I don't even care. You can take my stuff. My stuff is free to use. Okay? You can take my stuff. You can mirror it. You can share it on your channels. I won't say a darn thing to you as long as you don't put it off as your own. But it'll be hard to do when people see me saying, this is Freeqo. Freeqo did this. Freeqo.com. It'll be hard for you to pull off. So, hey, I'm okay. You know, if you can make more money off of this than I can, then good on you. Go ahead. So I live by my commitment. I would not violate IP, not because I wouldn't want to, but because I respect the power behind those laws. The power being ultimately, it may take years, but eventually somebody with a gun will show up at my door, and I don't want that. So I try to follow IPs just because of that. Other than that, I wouldn't deceive you. I wouldn't try to put off something as that I did as something else. But I would, for instance, I would be doing a top 40 show. I love to listen to new music. I love new music. Always looking for new music. And I keep a top 40 on my YouTube channel, Akjumbatsa. And I have playlists. You can check that out. I have all kinds of playlists. You might find some of them pretty interesting. A lot of weird ones. And I make, most of them are public. Certainly the music ones are public, so you can go and you can see what I have in my current list. This is my top 40 nominees that I'm getting ready, like what will be the top 40. So I just do a monthly chart now. But if I could do a show, I would do weekly top 40. I would do a weekly top 40 show and I'd play the songs. And I can't do that because of IPs. There's so many things that so many of us would be doing, but we can't because of IPs. And it's in the hands of the very, 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 very few. And the creators, God bless them. What are they going to do? They're never going to make any money if they don't hoard their IP to others, sell their minds to others. Just scoop it out and hand it on over to some digital empire. Gets into the Disney trough or the Sony trough or whatever ginormous entities are looming. T-Mobile and Verizon just emerged. Yeah. That's how it goes. That's how it goes. And I will end this segment here, but stay tuned because the focus stories of the day are coming up. Okay. Well, that was the feature, and that was a short version of the feature. I wanted to say a lot more there, but we're already running a little bit behind schedule there, so I'm going to try to get through this. This might be a quicker version of the talk focus here. All right, welcome to the talk focus for Freeqo Talks the News on Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. And our first story in Talk Focus is Meet the Ancient Greek Who Had Brain Surgery. As the West dissolved beneath the weight of its own bureaucratic strain, the East thrived in the arts, philosophy, and science. By the East, I am referring to the eastern branch of the Roman Empire, which would eventually come to see itself as the Byzantine Empire. But for now, in our story, the people mostly claim the full mantle of Roman Empire, which still, even in the period of our tale, I'm putting it around 500 AD, since the discovery dates between the 4th and 7th centuries, carried prestige in and of itself. On an island in the Aegean, a skirmish occurred, or so the evidence suggests, that left an archer-lancer critically injured in the head. The archer-lancer was a man of great power and skill, a vital force to the whole, so doctors worked diligently to save him. To do so, they called in the brain surgeons because apparently they had them. And that's what researchers at Adelphi University suggest from physics.org. Researchers discover early complex brain surgery in ancient Greece. New research from Adelphi University has revealed the first forensically assessed archaeological discovery of remains of a group of domineering mounted archer lancers and their kin of the Eastern Roman Empire from the turbulent Proto-Byzantine period, which spanned the 4th to 7th centuries. 10 skeletal remains, 4 women and 6 men, likely of high standing, high social standing, were discovered in the Paleocastro site on Thasos Island in Greece. Their bones illuminated their physical activities, traumas, and even a complex form of brain surgery. As for the brain surgery, Agalarakis suggests that even despite a grim prognosis, an extensive effort was given to this surgery for this male. So, it's likely that he was a very important individual to the population at Paleocastro. Agalarakis and his colleagues were able to derive medical and surgical data as well as paleopathological data on this extraordinary head and neck surgery and the great efforts of the surgeon. It was determined that the likely cause for the surgical intervention was infection, and that Archer died, and that he died shortly after or during surgery. The surgical operation is the most complex I have ever seen in my 40 years of working with anthropological materials, Agalarakis said. It is unbelievable that it was carried out with most complicated preparations for the intervention, and then the surgical operation itself, which took place, of course, in a pre-antibiotic era. That's probably what killed the guy. Just saying, either that or, I mean, that looks pretty nasty. That is some geared up skull action there is what that is, and you do not want that on any day of the week. I mean that. You do not want that on any day of the week. That's not a good outcome for you. But what's interesting about this story is the time period. Now, I didn't do it here, but this could have been 535 AD. 535 AD. See what was happening in 535 AD. Well, just before was you had Belisarius, and he was slapping Italy back to its senses. He was bringing Italy back into the fold. He was working to reunite the Western Roman Empire with the Eastern Roman Empire to reestablish the full Roman Empire. And then stuff happened. First off, a plague hit, and this is devastating. Like 20% of the population kind of death, kind of plagues. Although nowadays, maybe the plague would have caused a far less death than that did. But at the time, 20% death. And then on top of that, you had some major volcano, which lunged the whole world in a darkness for, I don't know, a few years. But 535 was the darkest and the worst. It's considered the worst in human history. And this is about when this happened. So during that period of time that most people think of as the Dark Ages, because that's, at least in the West, it was kind of entering into that. This would actually be its last. Actually, you could say in a lot of ways, 535, what happened, essentially, Belisarius was called back because they were running out of reserves and they desperately needed Belisarius at home to save the day. And then Justinian came jealous of Belisarius. Belisarius ends up getting killed by Justinian, allegedly. I think that's true. You have to recheck. You have to check that one yourself, though. And that's the backdrop for this. So during this period of time, what was going on there was, well, they were pretty. They were, the East did not go dark. The East never went dark. The West went dark, so to speak. But they only went dark for maybe. You think of the Dark Ages, and we imagine that it lasts till like the 14th century, 13th, 14th century, but really things stopped being dark soon after, maybe for many places, soon after 800, really. But anyway, that's another story. That's all. There's always other stories, and then you have to go on. I didn't fix this headline. That's right. I put the wrong headline here. Let me see if do I have that? No. Let me see if I have the right headline for this somewhere. Because why did that end up happening? That is not the right headline, I can assure you, kids. Oh, that's right. I don't have it here. Okay, so let's just say I'll just read the science20.com headline. Evolution could make future viruses even weirder, some having the building blocks for their own metabolism. And this part I wrote up here. The front line of the potential for human existence could very well be in dealing with the new viral reality, where viral reports may become as common as weather reports. In that future, humans and their augmented intelligence will be battling the increasingly evolving viruses, some of which will take the battle to new places never before imagined. Never before imagined. So here's an excerpt from the Science 20 article. Metabolism, the collection of processes cells use to extract energy from nutrients, is a hallmark of cellular life absent from viruses almost by definition. Nevertheless, these giant viruses seem to have genes linked to several key metabolic pathways in living cells. Using known giant virus genes as markers and patterns in data created by others, the authors of a recent paper pieced together genomes for 501 giant viruses, primarily from marine and freshwater environments. These genomes contain the standard features you'd expect: genes that direct the construction of the virus's protective shell and that allow it to infect and kill its host, but also metabolic genes. Thus, metabolic genes included many functions that had never been seen in viruses. Other examples have been isolated viral genes that were virtually identical to their cellular counterparts, suggesting they had been acquired from the host by chance during an infection and pasted into the virus's genome relatively recently, vestigial artifacts of invasions past rather than functioning tools. Wow, they comprise large portions of familiar metabolic pathways, but had their own unique signature. Huh. So what they're discovering is that the way that viruses can essentially, if I understand this correctly, could essentially inherit like whole new complex traits from other organisms that they encounter, and they somehow essentially get some of their genes into theirs, and then it creates things that, wow, for the 501 giant viruses, primarily from marine and freshwater environments. Yeah, the world is stranger and stranger and stranger, and the more we know, the less we know. And this is just another example of that. We're about ready to, wow, this could be one of the major focuses of human society is this right here, is dealing with that viral reality, that continued viral threat to humanity. Who knows, we might be on the verge of maybe finally coming to terms with cancers, and that might be just in time to deal with a whole new host of continued lethal threats to our existence. So this is going to be a fun time. Really, really fun time. We got to get these viruses nipped in the bud and get this done, because I will say, on the main, the pandemic type spreading of viruses does not favor we the poors in any way, shape, or form. It definitely favors, I use the word billionaires, but really the more accurate term I should start using more and more is just citadelians. You can, I believe, you don't necessarily have to be a billionaire to be a citadelian, nor if you're a billionaire are you necessarily a citadelian, but almost all billionaires are citadelians to some degree. And there are very few citadelians who are not billionaires, so that's why I've been using the word billionaire. Most people can identify with that, but really it's citadelian is what we're talking about. And that is the end of this half of the show. Stay tuned. Second half is coming. Don't worry, I'm not. Oh, let me quit this there. Don't worry, I'm not just flaming out so quickly and abruptly. I'm about ready to get on the other side, but before I do, I want to Yeah, I wanna let you a little sneak peek of what's coming. There's a news poem. There's a news poem. That's what's coming on the other side. Vanitas. There it is. Vanitas with Pear in mouth, an AI study in fake news. That's the news poem. That's what's going to be on the other side. And we got other cool, neat stuff planned. We have less fake injuries when college sports gets back to action. We also have the dialectical, the last story of the day, which will be the drone wars have only just begun, or the democratization of force. So I need to take a bit of a break here to do the usual things that I have to do. I got to stand up, stretch, do things, liquidate and pondulate and rest the brain and get ready for the second half of the show. So stay tuned, everyone. Don't go anywhere. Second half of the show is back in less than 5 minutes.
Love overwhelmed me. Love overwhelmed me. Love overwhelmed me. Love overwhelmed me. Love overwhelmed me.
Well, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back. We are back where we belong. I want you back where you belong. What is that, 38 special, Back Where You Belong? I heard about it 1,000 places. I don't remember. You remember that? I can't dare try to play the clip for you for the song, which I would so love to do, because that's who I am. I am that type of person that interjects songs with everything, because that's what I do, because I'm an idiot. Well, I'm not an idiot. I'm maybe the greatest human being on the face of the planet. Or the worst. I don't know, I vacillate between the two. Well, I don't, but Freeqo does. Well, I am Freeqo. Wait a second, hold on. All right, we are back to, well, where are we? We're back at Freeqo.com, not freaking about the news for you the people. And this is Freeqo Talks the News, Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. And we're going to go and get ready to do what will be. See if we get this. Yeah, we're gonna head on down here. Let's just mosey on down there. We've already talked about these things. We did this story. Remember this story? Remember the talk feature? Yep. Oh! Don't forget to tip your Freeqo. I forgot that. I forget to say these. Go to freeqo.com/tips and tip your Freeqo dudes. Tip me. Just takes you to a PayPal account and you give me money. There's a talk focus, and here we go. This is where we're at. This is what we come to. Now we're ready to record this segment coming up here. Let's do that. Let's record this segment. This is the news poem for Freeqo Talks the News for Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. And the news poem title is Vanitas with Pear and Mouth, an AI study in fake news. What we have here, folks, is a clever manipulation of facts and figures that have produced a narrative that fake news is a value our machine can objectively obtain. That's the general premise of our news poem's news part of the poem, the setup, as it were. In this story, Microsoft brags about how awesome its new AI fake news detector is. Betterer than anyone else's. Yes, I meant to say anti-betterer. News first, poem follows. From VentureBeat. Microsoft claims its AI framework spots fake news better than state-of-the-art baselines. Excerpt. In a study published this week on the preprint server arxiv.org, Microsoft and Arizona State University researchers propose an AI framework, multiple sources of weak social supervision, that leverages engagement and social media signals to detect fake news. They say that after training and testing the model on a real-world data set, it outperforms a number of state-of-the-art baselines for early fake news detection. A module dubbed Label Weighting Network, LWN, yo, we in the LWN, we in the LWN, baby! Yeah. Models the weight of the weak labels that regulate the learning process of the fake news classifier. Awesome. Taking what the researchers refer to as an instance, for example, a news piece, and its label as input. It outputs a value representing the importance weight for the pair, which determines the influence of the instance in training the fake news classifier. To allow information sharing among different weak signals, a shared feature extractor works alongside the LWN to learn a common representation and to use functions to map features to different weak labeled sources. That sounds all good, right? That sounds all good. I could I really often I flutter between which should be the dialectical and which should be the news poem. In this case, I really, really thought long and hard. I almost made this the dialectical, but you know what? I'm just going to let the poem speak for itself, such as it may or may not do. Vanitas with Pear and Mouth, an AI study in fake news. Take this pear, the cool slices of it, now that we've done the cutting. Still cool, dripping frost implied. I will design pear. I made a note of the coolness only after the fact. The sweet dangled in the propositional, lingering over the tongue's fact. Fact. I'd wear a pink nightie for a day to assure I had these freaking pears every day. Just like this. Prepared just like this. I wrote it. Fact. The machine processes the intent. Data gathers in my mouth the juices. No! The pulp. The pillows of palate, as my better self noted. Data gathers at the source, the code, the identity. The seller determines the outcome. I once wrote a story and no one understood. I was making fun of them. I was. The machine dates me, dances with the pear thing, the whole pear tale. Makes it news. Man claims pear tastes like pillows. Source. Data set, home. Home 525. Refer code asterisk 525 dash process, comma, verified. Verified. Pears taste like pillows. It goes like that. And it goes on and on and on. The king had a decree. The republic has coders. Locked behind a veil of market and machine, the velvet glove of an iron fist pulls its fingers tighter around the latest pear offering. Yeah. Oh. Alrighty. Well, that wave goes by was for the video segment being recorded, not to you guys. I would never leave you until I do, which is probably going to be soon. All right. We're going to get to the next segment here, and that is the talk briefs. So let's get this lined up. Let's get everything situated, ready to go. Here's the talk briefs. Whoop, hold on one second. Let me just get a dash of this, because see how many of these I get in me today. So I'm definitely going to do the first story, but then thereafter I have these stories that I could consider priorities too. I think I like these two stories. I'll just leave it at that for now. All right. I'm about ready to start right now. And these are the talk briefs for Freeqo Talks the News for April 8th, 2020, Wednesday. Today's first brief is NCAA coordinator of officials says coaches and players will cut down on faking injuries in 2020. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes. 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 I love it. I love it when I hear they're going to fake less. That's awesome. Awesome. That's noble of them. This, by the way, it's in the article, but I'll just give you a cliff note. I didn't include it here because, takes so much, shows so much here as an excerpt. But essentially, with the way that so many teams have gone to these, and this is really a football thing primarily, the way that these teams have gone to so many of these no huddles, quick sets, keeping players from being able to get rotated in, they have been apparently faking injuries to stop them. And sometimes it's not even just that. Sometimes they're faking injuries just to mess up the momentum of another team when they're on a good drive. So there's various things that have been going on there. I'm not sure that that's not always happened. I just think possibly maybe there have become more reasons to use them, and that maybe they're just getting a little bit more praise and using a good tool in and of itself. If it's used judiciously, everyone's going to do a little bit of that deceptioning when you're playing an honest game of football. But this is beyond that kind of allowable deception. That's kind of part of the game. That's part of the competition to some degree. It's an unwritten part. It really is unwritten, trust me. But it is kind of accepted. Everybody kind of knows. There's going to be a certain level of deception here, but there's levels of deception, and then there's levels of deception that start to hurt the overall product, and that's where the problem really is in this case. So if the deception puts others fundamentally at risk, and if this doesn't do that, or if it hurts the product, then that's the problem, and that's what's happening. You're getting more of these, and I've noticed it myself. I'm like, man, there's a lot of injuries. Like I didn't even catch on. I've been thinking, wow, man. Are we just now noticing how violent this sport is? See, that's another thing it does. It also, that's another. Not only does it slow the game down, which nobody wants. Oh gosh, injuries. This is why people don't watch your games live. They record them, or they got their YouTube TVs or whatever, so they can watch whatever they want later, and they just, this is that part. Skip. Nobody wants to watch the injury times. So it's bad for the brand. So that's why they have to deal with it. So this is the excerpt from this story from CBS Sports. Excerpt: NCAA coordinator of officials Steve Shaw told ESPN that the coaches, officials, and administrators discussed the act of faking injuries during the competition committee's meeting at NCAA headquarters in Indianapolis in February. The discussion didn't result in a new rule, but it did result in a stern warning. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, listen. We don't want to write a bunch of new stupid rules. Chill the mother out. Dudes. I mean, was it like that, or did they him and haw and passively aggressively with fine language that means nothing, kind of bureaucratic bumbo crap? I don't know. I hope that they called them up and said, dudes, listen, you idiots. This isn't in anyone's ultimate best interest. This hurts all of us. Knock it off. Because if we have to write rules about this is going to make us look like such wigglewogs. Trust me, you don't want to look like a wigglewog in this country. Wigglewogs are no longer in fashion. They're out. So don't be a wigglewog. I think it should go something like that. I mean, whatever their version of wigglewog is, that's just a placeholder for whatever. I don't want to offend anyone or hurt anyone or break anyone or destroy the lives of millions with my eyes alone, which I could do, but I don't, because I'm a decent human being. I'm Freeqo. I don't freak out. Smart toilet monitors for signs of disease, from Science Daily. Excerpt: there's a new disease detecting technology in the lab of Sanjib Sam Gampir, MD, PhD, and its number one source of data is number one. And number two, it's a smart toilet. Oh my gosh. Okay, whoever wrote that sentence, and I don't use people's names just to protect them, not to prevent them from getting their glory, but this is pretty awesome sentence. I want to say I like you, and let's see if this continues, because that is nice. This is a sentence that I would have written. It's a smart toilet, but not the kind that lifts its own lid in preparation for use. This toilet is fitted with technology that can detect a range of disease markers in stool and urine, including those of some cancers such as colorectal or urological cancers. Well, that makes sense. 1 and 2 cancers. The device could be particularly appealing to individuals who are genetically predisposed to certain conditions. Wait. Get it to everyone. Democratize this. Get it to everyone. Open source it. Put out the plans. Let everybody's 3D printers print them up, and bada boom, bada bing, Bob's your uncle. That's all you got to do nowadays. See, you don't need to have places anymore. All you need to do is get the raw materials to the 3D printing folks, and just give us the plans, and don't, just open source it. And that's how you do it. See, that's how you do it. That's how the world works in a much better way. And that's what we need to do. This device could be particularly appealing to individuals. Okay, I already said that. Our concept dates back well over 15 years, said Pear, professor and chair of radiology. When I'd bring it up, people would sort of laugh because it seemed like an interesting idea, but also a bit odd. With a pilot study of 21 participants now completed, Pear and his team have made their vision of a precision health-focused smart toilet a reality. I mean, there is some trepidation that I have regarding this item, and regarding its potential insertion into my home, and that has to do with the maybe not wanting to take a poop or a pee every day and feel like, oh my gosh, well, let me diagnosis. Go ahead, give me, because I think that's what it would be like for me if I had that. But at the same hand, when you want to know, maybe it makes sense that only if you're like at risk that you would like want to face that thing every day. Like every day you get in the toilet, it's like the toilet is judging your butt. You're judging your butt and your frontals. And I won't use whatever, because I'm decent. I won't use the words for those because it's considered insensitive and vulgar to use those words. You can use butt though, so we're fine with butt. So the butt and the fronts, whatever your fronts are, that's what it's all about. It's just about judging your butt and your front. And I don't want that. Who wants that? I don't want that. I mean, if you could somehow detach yourself from the proposition in the first place, then maybe you could endure the persistent daily judging. But I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. So I'm going to say I think it's a great, great tool that somebody's working on. It needs to be open sourced, and it needs to be shared with all the 3D printers and whatever's out there so everybody can make these things for themselves. That's the way it needs to be, kids. We need to open source the world. Open source the world. But I'm not a radical because I'm a decent human being, and I know that being a radical means that when Coronaville hits, you're like, wait, no, I'm a valuable citizen. I mean things to this country. I'm a valuable citizen, and people like me. People don't just like me; they love me. I am Freeqo. I'm just kidding. I don't care. But I'm going to do this one. Let's see. Let me just look real quick. Oh. Nope, no, that wasn't there. Okay, good. I missed putting something with this, and that's okay. You know what? I think we're going to go with... we're going to go with this one. New genetic tool promises to unlock secrets of microscopic marine life. 50% of the oxygen we breathe comes from... Oh, this is an excerpt. This is from Science Mag. 50% of the oxygen we breathe comes from ocean microbes. Yet these tiny marine organisms have largely remained a mystery to science. Now, thanks to the efforts of more than 100 researchers around the globe, scientists have found a way to unlock the genomes of a handful of these creatures by genetically engineering their DNA. Wow. Okay. The study will propel advances in plankton biology. Wow. They're going to genetically design the plankton to be better. That's gotta be good. That's gonna work out, says Angela. See that? You know what? I just thought of something. See, that's where the human being is gonna make the mistake. It's not going to be the human and the singularity with the AI. It's gonna be when we screw up and we singularity a bear with AI. And then it comes bears with AI. Imagine bears with AI. Bears with AI. Bears with AI, ladies and gentlemen. Their fundamental preferences most likely won't change. I don't know that the AI will inherently make the bears smarter. It'll just enable the bears to get what they fundamentally want. Which means some of us are going to have to move. Just saying. Some of us are going to have to move. Because bears with AI is not good. That's where we're really going to screw up. And that's just what they're planning on doing. They're starting with plankton and they're ending with bears. And the reason I say bears is because they're probably in my course of the woods. I live in Pennsylvania. The bears are the apex predator, probably, I would say. Bears, yep. So I have a particular vehicle of power in mind when I say we should not allow this, because bears, objectively, even though it's purely subjectively, bears. That's where I'm at with this. So, the study will propel advances in plankton biology, says Angela Falciatore, a marine biologist with CNRS, another clutter of words. The French National Research Agency at Sorbonne University, who was not involved with the work. What? Those advances could shed light on the early evolution of life and potentially even lead to new antibiotics, he said, and also new bears with AI. In 2015, the Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, a philanthropic organization that supports basic research about microbes and the environment, provides $8 million to researchers to close that knowledge gap. Studies of animals, plants, yeast, and bacteria have shown that when scientists modify an organism's genes, they uncover clues to how those genes and the organisms themselves function. The awardee eventually pooled their expertise and insights, picking a range of 39 species to work on. Some species were chosen because of their economic importance. Wow. Protist-linked red tides and other algal blooms can be catastrophic to fisheries and recreation, and some because they represented different branches of the protist family tree. These organisms are different as humans are to fish, and even more. Wow, says project coordinator Thomas Mock, a microbiologist at the University of East Anglia. The teams collected creatures with tongue-twisting names like, you know what? I'm not trying it. Okay, I gotta try, everybody. Archolistid, Opisthocont, Coccolithophore. That's interesting. Primarily from water and coastal environments. All told, the scientists were able to add genes to 13 species. These included a protist that kills fish with its toxins and one that also infects mollusks and amphibians, the group reports today in Nature Methods. Wow. Some of these stories just totally trip me out. I'm sure they trip you guys out too. I hope it trips you out. That's why I picked some of them. Studies of animals, plants, yeast, and bacteria have shown that when scientists modify an organism's genes, they uncover clues to how those genes... See, this is true. I can definitely see that. But then, this is the part here. Modify an organism's genes. They can hasten evolution. And they can create... evolution is essentially mutations, and what we're maybe learning, remember the story earlier about how viruses can inherit like whole complex systems new to them that produce these weird giant viruses or whatever. Or the giant viruses are the ones that are capable of this happening with, so they're really new viruses with totally different properties suddenly come into being. And here you have that human is now entering into putting they're plucking their You know, I said this. I said, you know what? I won't get into that. Never mind. This is already long enough. So this segment is over, but I'll save it for another time. But I'll get back to that, and it has to do with the Tower of Babel. So I'll just float that out there. Tower of Babel. It'll make sense maybe in a future show when we have another story that kind of fits into this opportunity to talk about that. So the awardee eventually pulled their experience in insight picking. Okay, and they worked on 39 species, and so they were. These organisms are as different as humans are to fish, and even more. So they're radically different than the type of organisms that we've known before, too. So that is all told. Okay, here's the bottom line. All told, scientists were able to add genes to 13 species. And then in the end, they have a protist that kills fish with its toxins, and one that also infects mollusks and amphibians. And then they paired them up with an AI, and then a bear ate one of the fish that had the AI in him, and then the bear got the AI in his head, and then the bear had babies with a girl bear, because male bears and male bears can't have baby bears, or girl bears and girl bears. You know, they can do whatever they want, but anyway, in this case, male bear and a lady bear, they had baby bears, and then the baby bears were born with the AIs, and the baby bears, like, they did it with other bears, and then they had more bears, and then, you know, within 3 weeks, probably, I may be exaggerating, thinking of bears as being like rabbits, but it's probably longer than 3 weeks. But within some period of time, all of a sudden, there's enough bears with the AIs in their heads. They're like, yo, man, I figured some shit out. Oh, I'm sorry. Listen, when these people like come back, here's what we do. And then the next thing you know, that's when people have to move, because the bears are like, they got AI, you got to move. Okay? That's how it's going to be. Stay tuned, because the last segment of the show is coming up, and that is going to be our dialectical. And the dialectical title is The Drone Wars Have Only Just Begun, or the Democratization of Force. All right, and there's the democratization of. That's what we're going to be getting to in a second here. I got to take another sipples. Well, folks, we're finally on the last story, and it's a relatively short dialectical, which was one of the reasons why I wasn't so concerned about running so late in the other areas, because as dialecticals go, it's a relatively short one. So buckle up and get prepared for the dialectical. Here we go. And now we begin to record. This is the dialectical for Freeqo Talks the News for Wednesday, April 8th, 2020. And our dialectical for the day, our last segment of the show, is The Drone Wars Have Only Just Begun, or the Democratization of Force. In Bruegel's panorama of smoke and slaughter, 2 people only are blind to the carrion army. Sylvia Plath from 2 Views of a Cadaver Room. It's a poem. While the world descends into the depths of Coronaville, the pre-Coronaville conflicts have largely not ended. One such conflict is in Libya, which has now become a laboratory in proxy wars between factions, funded by all the major world powers vying for a foothold in the natural central hub of Northern Africa. Everyone wants a port. Everyone wants bases. Everyone wants cuts. Everyone wants in. That story is worth a dialectical in and of itself, but we're going to get to the lab part of this story. An article from the Organization for World Peace is titled, The Dangers of Cheap Military Drone Technology, A Threat from Above in Libya. The title chose to use the value-assumed word dangers to describe the existence of cheap military drone technology. But, in the main, is it? Within a framework of preference, it could be good, it could be dangerous. If you favor decentralized communities, if you favor more options for more individuals, then you would replace the word dangers with the word hope. If you like the current centralized, large-scale systems that put all the resources and thus all the critical decisions in the hands of a few, then yes, cheap drones are a fundamental threat to your very existence, and that's just the start. But it's enough. Well, for now. From the article. The Libya conflict has been concentrated in Tripoli, mainly fought from skies using sophisticated yet cheap, relatively, Chinese-made Wing-Lung drones, $1 million to $2 million, and Turkish-made TB2s. David Axe, reporting for the National Interest, notes that Beijing has been eager to cash in on the arms trade. This affordable but deadly weaponry has gone a long way to increase casualties and prolong this proxy war. Umar Farouk, writing for The Intercept, has noted that the genie is out of the bottle. This is because, historically, the U.S. Predator drone, $15 million, along with its other sophisticated drones, have been somewhat politically controlled, as their great fiscal cost also reduced risk of their ubiquitous use. So, getting back to me. Short term, for the people of Libya, these cheap drones are bad. Very bad. They kill. Well, they don't kill. The operators kill, and therein lies the problem. Once again, it's the user, not the tool. Short-term, cheap drones in this war are making it easier for the warring factions to make loud and destructive tumults much more effectively and cheaply at the cost of human life right here and now. The problem, though, is not the drones. It's who currently has them. For now, the drones are still, for the individual, for neighborhoods, for small communities, pretty expensive. You almost still need the approval and backing of one of the major world powers that sees you in a useful bag. Well, basically that sees you as a useful body bag for you to get the kind of coin that you need for these military drones. But that cost, friends, is plummeting. Soon, the ability of individuals to manufacture their own drones in vast quantities will be a very real possibility, and it'll make increasingly expensive. Well, it'll make it increasingly expensive for large-scale systems to control, to contain territories that prefer not to be bothered with their commands. This is the real threat of cheap military drones, and it will be the next major front in the American war for independence. The right to make and own drones. Drones that can protect you from all enemies, foreign and domestic. And here's a little bit more from the article. As Chris Cole from the Drone Wars Research Group notes, drones lower the threshold for use of lethal force. This is combined with the use of remote warfare technology, which combats averse public reactions to the death of military forces deployed overseas. This quote takes into consideration the consequence of cheap drones in the narrow context of the wars in Libya, specifically the battle for Tripoli. The circumstances of this affair involve factions that have already well established their exclusive access to force over a populace that is unarmed and significantly submitted. Take this technology and spread it through the wild hills and mountains of America and basements and barns across the country. It's coming. Once people figure out the reality of power surrounding this technology, and cheap drones, drone swarms, easily cranked out. That's only one of the areas where technology is going to raise the cost of coercion for the few over the many. If you prefer consensuality, mutual prosperity, you prefer cheap military drones, just not in the hands of the factions formed from the old reality, the reality where force favored the few. That age is already gone. We're just walking through the slaughter, oblivious to the carnage around us, as the old world is further hacked to pieces by its own machine, getting tangled up in the news. And I think that's how I'm going to end this segment. All right. So I told you that was going to be, well, for me at least, that was going to be a short dialectical. So this is coming to the end of the show here. Thank everybody who joined us being Freeqo and all of the other folks that have variously entered into the same skull that I have in a metaphorical sense, not in a literal, like I literally believe this is true sense. So, you know, you got to guard yourself these days. You always have to have your little warnings. And that's why I'm going to have this little thing here. This is just for you. As I head on out the door, I will see you all tomorrow, same time, about 12:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find us. We live stream on Facebook. I'm going to have to put that one up there. Forgot that one. We live stream on Facebook, and we live stream on YouTube on our YouTube channel, Actun Batza, ACTIUNE, Batza, BAZA, and on DLive TV /Freeqo is also, that's the main place where I'm really want to try to focus the show being fundamentally on DLive. That's where I plan on really focusing my attention on. So if you're not on DLive, join DLive and be sure you follow me on DLive, because that's primarily where I'll be focusing on as I go forward. And with that note, I'm going to say goodnight to everyone and send you all on your merry way with this little, hey man, I hope I didn't offend anyone too much. If I did, can we still be friends? Come on, we can still be friends.
Thank you for engaging with this material presented. As usual, remember your views, your suppositions do not make you subhuman, nor do they permit you to subhumanize others. No humans were harmed in the making of the show, and we extend no wish of harm in anyone who hasn't directly harmed or threatened to harm others first, no matter how reprehensible we find your views.
We will see you in the next Freeqo Talks, where Freeqo attempts to talk about news without freaking out.